Good morning, class. So far, we studied about death by hanging, death by strangulation, death by suffocation. The last topic that is left is death by drowning. So, let's start with it. As if you recollect, death by hanging, body weight used to play a major role, whereas in death by strangulation and suffocation, the air is prevented from entering the body by some external forces. In death by drowning, death is mostly caused by asphyxia, where air is prevented from entering the lungs by immersion in water. So, if we define death by drowning, it is the death which is caused by submersion in liquid or water. So, the air is prevented from entering the lungs due to the submersion of the body. But it is important to note that it is not necessary that the whole body should be submerged in the water. Even if the face is submerged, then also death may occur. Death may even occur in as shallow waters up to 6 inches or 15 centimeters. So it is not necessary that it should be an ocean or a river. A person may die in a swimming pool, in a bathtub also. So, but generally, death occurs in shallow waters when the person is an alcoholic, or he's under epileptic effects, or the person is an infant who is not able to control his body. So there are different stages of drowning when a person may fall into water voluntarily, that is, he wants to kill his life. Death may be suicidal. Then a person is forcefully thrown into water. So the effects or the observations are different for these two different kinds of death. That is when death is homicidal and when death is suicidal. So what happens is when a person falls in water, so firstly he sinks to the depth which is proportionate to the momentum that is obtained during fall. So then body immediately rises to the surface because of the buoyancy force of the body, the clothes, and the struggling movement, because there are involuntary reflexes which our body makes in order to save one's life. So these will result in lifting of the body to the surface. Though it is important to note that the specific gravity of body is higher than water, so actually it should sink down, but it rises up because of the buoyancy force that generates out of the clothes and the struggling movement of the limbs. Then people who do not know swimming, they shout for help, they cry for help. So in that struggle, what happens is the oxygen, the air which is already inside the lungs, that forces out of the body, and water enters in the body. It replaces the whatever oxygen is there in the lungs. So what happens is then whatever remaining air is there in the lungs, that is replaced by water. So then what will happen? The body will immerse again, it will rise again. This process will continue till whatever oxygen is there in the lungs is expelled from the body. This generally happens thrice. So in three ups and downs, the complete air which is there in the lungs will be expelled, and the space will be occupied by water. So what happens is this makes the body heavier, and the person also becomes unconscious because whatever oxygen is required for the body is then lost. So that makes the person unconscious, and then finally the person sinks to the bottom, to the base, to the ground. Generally also it happens is when a person is pushed from a height or thrown from a height into water. So because of the shock, a person may become unconscious. So if the drowning is accompanied with a struggle, then you will find water in the lungs, in the stomach, in the respiratory tract. But if there is less struggle, there are less chances that there will be water inside the body, inside the lungs, inside the respiratory tract. What happens is when you push someone, so that shock may result into unconsciousness. So if a person becomes unconscious, he'll not try to save his life, will not try to shout for help, obviously, because the person is unconscious. Then the air which is there inside the lungs, that remains intact, and you'll find less water at the time of post-mortem. So the major causes or the modes in which death occurs when a person is pushed into water is firstly asphyxia. That is the most common cause of death. So when some person is pushed into water, the person a body is immersed into water, then water mixes with the air inside the lungs and the mucus that is there in the body, and produces a froth that blocks the vessels, and these vessels, the vessels which carry oxygen, the air to the lungs. So when there is a blockage, the external air won't be able to enter the body, and which results into asphyxic death. Then the next is vagal inhibition. When someone is suddenly pushed into water or suddenly falls into water, the person suffers a cardiac arrest out of fear. So, because when a person is pushed into water from a height, what happens is water strikes the chest and the stomach with a lot of force. And mathematically, it is said when a person is dropped when a 70 kg person is dropped from a height of 60 meters, around 1300 kg per centimeter force is generated. So that's pretty higher. So that results into cardiac arrest. And also vagal inhibition causes death in cold water as well as in normal or warm water. Also what happens is when a person is drowning in ice cold water, the time which is there between the falling or the immersion and the death of the person is less, because when a person is pushed into ice cold water, the struggle is much higher. So because of the forceful respiration, the body loses its energy much easier, much early, and this leads to sudden death. Also, there is one thing to note: when it's a thin man and the thin man is immersed into water, his so when a thin man is pushed into water, because of the less energy a thin man is generally believed to carry, the increased reflexes makes him unconscious early as compared to a fat man. And a fat man dies because of hypothermia, and a thin man dies of what do you call increased respiratory reflexes. These two things result into sudden death when the water is ice cold water, that is around 4 degrees Celsius. Then injury may also lead to death of a person. So generally injuries occur when a person is pushed or falls into a shallow water body or a narrow well. So that injury may be fracture of the skull bone or fracture and dislocation of the cervical vertebrae. So when a person is pushed with obviously, as we just discussed, that there's lot of force that is generated because of the fall from the height. So that force is so strong as to cause fracture of the skull bone, or that, if that's as we studied in the earlier classes, that the cervical vertebrae may also fracture if the head strikes against the wall or any hard surface. So when the water is very shallow, there are chances that when a person falls from a height, his head will strike the ground, the base of the water. And when a person falls in a well which is very narrow, there are chances that his head might strike the walls, so which may result into injuries, the head injuries and the cervical vertebrae fracture, that may lead to instant death of the person. Also, you may note that asphyxia supervenes within 2 minutes of complete immersion. So complete immersion, as we discussed, a body generally immerses, then comes up thrice. So it may take some time. So after complete immersion of the body, asphyxia may supervene within 2 minutes. So, and heart may stop beating within 2 to 12 minutes, depending on the nature of the body and the nature of droning. And then it is, yes, even expert divers may not hold breath for more than 2 minutes. So it is no, death is almost certain when breathing stops. And after 5 minutes of complete submersion, person cannot be recovered back. He cannot be restored back. So there are chances when a person sinks, if he is rescued by applying some mechanical ways, his life may be restored. But mostly after 5 minutes, the person dies and he can't recover. Death in cold water also, it is medical science says that in cold water death is faster as compared to warm water, as we already discussed. So in cold water the body temperature decreases very rapidly, so then a person dies more early as compared to hot water. So this 5 minutes time may vary when the water is ice cold. So that's all for today. I'll try to cover the post-mortem observations in the next lecture, and till then, stay safe. Bye.